International Nurses Day is celebrated annually across the globe on the 12th May in memory of the birth of the pioneering modern nursing, Florence Nightingale, a British nurse, social reformer and statistician, best known as the Lady with the Lamp and the Angel of Crimea. All those names she earned for her endless supply of compassion and for making nursing an honorable vocation. The day is also set aside to honor nurses as an invaluable resource and raise awareness of the challenges faced by the profession. The theme for this year's celebration is Nurses, a voice to lead, invest in nursing and respect rights to secure global health. The greatest threat to global health is the workforce shortage. Therefore, the International Council of Nurses used their day to demand for actions on investing in nursing, protection, and the safety of nurses, as they recognize the selfless work and sacrifices of nurses during the pandemic and those living in the conflict zones. Focusing on the need to protect, support, and invest in the nursing profession to strengthen health systems around the world, the association has launched a compilation of case studies submitted by nurses across the world to showcase the incredible range of innovative work nurses do every day. Nurses cared for COVID-19 patients throughout the pandemic, as well as the wide range of nursing that continued throughout the pandemic to care for those suffering from all the conditions from birth to death, and non-communicable diseases to infectious diseases, mental health to chronic conditions. In hospitals, communities, and homes, nurses provide accessible, affordable, person-centered holistic care for all. It's observed that COVID-19 has exposed weakness caused by underinvestment in the health systems around the world, Africa in particular. The World Health Organization African region has long grappled with severe shortage of nurses, which, if left unaddressed, poses a significant threat to our progress towards universal health coverage. International Nurses Day this year presents another opportunity to call on African governments to commit the necessary investment to help improve the attractiveness of the nursing profession. This will require proper equipment, better working conditions, appropriate education, upskilling opportunities, and job creation. The case for investing in nursing education, jobs, and leadership is clear, and it's time to commit to action.
Our first guest to begin this conversation is, first of all, a nurse, educator, public speaker, and former chairman, a senior staff association of universities, teaching hospitals, research institutes, and associated institutions, a lecturer in the School of Postgraduate Oncology, Nursing, National Hospital, Abuja. COMRADE Jane Karang Agabi. It's good to have you in the studio.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I'll be surrounded by nursing today. I'm remembering my very first injection. Okay, our second guest is the Director, Nursing Services, Department of Nursing Services, Hospital Management Board, Federal Capital Territory Administration. She was also a former principal of the FCT School of Nursing, former principal, FT School of Midwifery, Gwagwalada, Abuja. She has 38 years in nursing experience. Mrs. Grace Ellery, JP. Welcome to Lens in Africa.
Thank you.
So let me start with you. Tell us about your first experience in nursing, your very first experience.
My very first experience in nursing was really very, very embarrassing to me. I never knew it was going to be like that.
Okay.
Okay. That was when the first clinical posting, when I was a student nurse.
Wow.
When I was posted to the theater, in one of those postings, I saw the doctor when they opened up the patient who had myomectomy.
Yeah.
I saw this blood that was coming out. That was the first time of my seeing a patient really bleeding. I didn't know when I passed out. I just saw myself on a theater where I was, on a table where I was being
attended to. How were you able to get back? I mean, after such an experience, how did you, we'll talk about that. another day because that too much blood for me. So I think I'll stick with writing. All right, comrade, I'm going to come to you next. What's the first thing you think people should know about nursing? The very first thing.
Yeah, people should know that nurses are the pivot of the health sector. Nurses are the reason why we have the health sector running 24 hours. That without nurses, every hospital will shut down after work hours, normal work hours. But because of nursing, because of nurses, we can run a 24-hour service and the patients are catered for within this period of time. So nursing is very important in healthcare, and so they cannot be neglected.
That's fantastic. So, Mr. Larry, I'm going to ask you the next question. Today we celebrate International Nursing Day. Why are we remembering Nightingale, Florence Nightingale, today?
We are celebrating the International Nurses Day and remembering Florence Nightingale, who is the mother of modern day nursing. She was the one that really started what we call modern day nursing.
All right. Based
on her experiences, when she was asked to lead nurses, lead some group of people to go and attend to British soldiers, to go and attend to soldiers who were wounded at the British Crimean War. When she went there, she saw how the situation of the wounded soldiers were. The environment in where they were nursed was nothing to write home about. She looked at the whole situation and began to, put in efforts to see how the situation can be improved. She talked about how sanitation in the environment of where these soldiers were nursed would be improved, and she emphasized and made sure that those conditions were put in place. She also looked at how the feeding can be improved of these soldiers, and the way they are nursed can be improved. From there, she started talking about how to prevent infections, how to tidy environment, sanitation, opening up windows, ventilation. Wow. And we found out that during such efforts, most of these soldiers who would have died, they improved. And their health was really what it's supposed to be.
So that's the beginning of modern day nursing. Quite interesting. Comrade, I'm coming back to you. She just gave us a rather brilliant story. I'd like to push up on that, but before we dig more into nursing and modern day nursing and the issue, today, the International Day of Nursing, we're celebrating. Tell us a bit about the theme and why it is important we have a day set aside to remember nurses.
Now, the World Health Organization has recognized nurses. In fact, the world over have recognized nurses and nursing as, a profession that is very important to human lives. And so even year 2020 was, the theme for WHO was the year of the nurse. Yeah. And now, it is important to celebrate. In fact, other professions usually would have a day set out for them. But for nurses, because they're important, because they're special, because they are, privileged people, they set out a full week to celebrate nurses. Oh, wow. Yes, it's a full week celebration of nurses worldwide. And as we're celebrating in Nigeria, all over the world, nurses are being celebrated because they are very, very important in the healthcare sector.
Fantastic. Mr. Larry, we're going to talk a little more about nursing and tell us about the practical day-to-day of what they do during the COVID-19 pandemic. More nurses than doctors than any other medical profession were at work. They were stressed because they were doing so much. I thought they're all medical professionals, so why should so much wait? Why should they be so stressed? Tell us more about that, about the day-to-day jobs of the nurse in the hospital.
You see, the nursing jobs in the hospital are quite skillful. Okay. And then it demands a lot of trainings, it demands a lot of educational acquisition. And these nurses have gone through all that. And then you find out in the hospital, especially during that COVID period, a lot of patients came down with COVID-19. And these nurses were the ones being put there to nurse these patients. They were really overburdened because, you see, they have to do assessments of this patient, take histories from this patient, do assessment, physical examination, and then at the end of it all, they carry out nursing duties based on the problems they've identified for those patients.
Yeah.
And then you find out that it's really cumbersome and quite tasking.
Yeah.
So many of them were exposed, though they were given protective equipment to protect them from going down with the COVID. You still find out that some were still exposed in the process of that care for these patients. It was quite cumbersome. It was quite a taxing period. See, so many patients were hospitalized because of COVID-19.
Okay, Comrade, I'm going to ask follow up on that question. Averagely, like I'm just imagining now. I'm not a nurse, but averagely the doctor comes in, he spends a few minutes or thereabout with the patient, and the doctor leaves. It's now the nurse's responsibility to be able to, if it's a test, perform the test, come back, check up, draw blood, you know, manage the patient, and all of that. All that the nurse does. How tell us about a bit about the training and the mindset of a nurse to be able to do all of that, because nurses have problems at home as well, like everybody else. How are you trained to be able to do your job so professionally, take care of the people when you might be having your own issues?
Yeah, nursing in the first place is a calling.
Yeah, okay.
It's a calling. First of all, you have to be an empathic person, be someone who can bear the burden of another person's suffering, who would tolerate other people, who would be patient enough to be able to look after other people, whose family would even run away from. But you have such a heart, you know, to take care of this one. And then, you know, the responsibility is on the nurse. And it's important, you know, during the training, for us to put all of this, you know, knowledge on the students. You've got to, you know, be a scientist. Okay. You've got to be an empath. Okay. You know, you've got to be, you know, someone who loves what you're coming in to do. So from the classroom, you're groomed. From the classroom, you're taught, you know, exposed to, you know, practical experiences, clinical experiences, from where you learn the acts of nursing. Okay. And then there's emphasis on being an empath if you want to be a nurse. Because at the point, not all patients are pleasant. Yeah. Some are so sick, because of their health condition, they're not pleasant to be around. You could see wounds that are offensive. You could see unpleasant situations. They even vomit on you and all that. So you have to have that empathic heart to be able to cater for this person who is not your relation, yet you love the person enough to care for them so much.
Wow. That was a rather vivid picture. I was seeing myself as a nurse for a moment there and wondering how it all is. Mr. Larry, there never seems to be enough nurses. Every now and then you hear that the UK is looking for nurses, the US is looking for nurses, and all of that. Is there any chance that we might be having more business nurses than professional nurses, the more people are jumping into the profession simply because of the demand, but the skill and the empath, because it's not just about, like she said, it's a calling. So is there a worry or concern that we'll have more people in the field that they don't empathize with the patient, which is a very important critical part of care? They're just there for business, make their money and go away. Is there a concern in this department?
There's quite a concern, because you find out that it's not really because of the business making thing. Okay. We have nurses who are really empathic, like my colleague said, who really love the profession. They want to be the nurse. They want to care for patients. They want to give helping hands, because they have this spirit to care and to render help to those who are passing through challenges based on their health. You also find those within the same group who are, we won't say business conscious. Some of them are just because of the situations they found themselves in their working places, in their working environment, that push them to begin, and people now begin to look at nursing as if we're, business minded. It's not really business minded per se. Some have different motives as to why they want to leave the country. Some are in here to make it work.
Phenomenal. Comrade, I'm going to come back to you. This issue. Well, I'm going to push a bit more on this issue. like you said, this is first a calling. You have to be able to have a desire. In fact, let me put it back to you so you can clarify. What is at the heart of a nurse, the most critical element you need to have to become a nurse?
Now, you know that every African woman is a nurse in her own right.
Okay.
Because right from, you know, the tender age, you see the girl child playing, trying to play with the baby, trying to nurture a baby, trying to care for the baby, you know, trying to birth the baby and all of that. So you need to have a good heart, actually, to be a nurse.
Okay.
And maybe like any other profession where you have a mixed multitude, you could find one or two not very good hearts, but you must have a good heart to be a nurse. Because if you don't have a good heart, you won't care for another person. And you're not looking at it, you know, in the aspect of the money, which is not even there. And I don't blame anybody who is living and looking, because every person works to make ends meet. And when you work in a country where they place a very little value on you, and then you see openings, you run with it, because your family wants, you know, to be better. You want to render, you know, better assistance to your family. So, you know, that's why some people can afford to live. And those of us who have worked all our lives and almost on our way out are looked upon as people who've wasted their lives. But our satisfaction is that we, you know, we have given out, you know, both to the public and to the profession. And so we're happy that we're here. We're happy that we're nurses. And I don't blame anyone who runs away for greener pastures.
All right. Thank you. Mr. Larry, do you think nurses, I have a follow-up question, but before that I need to ask this. Do you think nurses are given their due place of respect and regard in the medical profession here in Nigeria and globally?
Back to your question. Nurses in Nigeria or globally, you know, we could see it that especially in the African countries, in the sub-Saharan Africa, we are not really given our rights. Do you understand? The things that are supposed to keep us, to retain us in Nigeria, to practice our profession, most times they are not as we see it in the overseas countries.
Okay.
Okay. Come, let me give you some instances.
Sure.
If you look at the wages, the salaries that nurses are paid, compared to the work we do, we are the ones that stay with the patient 24 hours. We spend more time with the patient. We are more exposed to even contacting infections in the process of nursing these patients. You find that nurses are one of the least paid professional workers, the profession in Nigeria, compared to other, like the doctors and what have you. Do you understand? And then you also find out that within our country, I'm using Nigeria as an instance, which is peculiar to developing countries. Most times our working conditions are not what is expected to be. You find out that you have shortage of nurses, which brings about increase in workloads. We have so many patients accessing care in our hospitals, especially in the teaching hospitals, in the FMC hospitals, even in our general hospitals. The patient's flow is quite high. And you find out that the number of nurses, nurse-patient ratio is not commensurate to what it's supposed to be. And these nurses are overstretched, they overwork, the working schedules, the working hours.
They are way too much.
You know, are really way too much. And when then we find out that some of them are stressed, there's burnout, there's dissatisfaction, and even the working environment, some hospitals, they don't even have equipment and tools to work with as compared to other developed countries.
All right, we just have about a minute left, so Comrade, I'm going to bring this for you to wrap up. What can be done? What do we need to do to be, number one, ensure that the people who give in so much for us daily, and like I said, from birth, we meet the nurse at the first time, you know, at birth, and then we continue to meet the nurse for the rest of our lives, regardless. What can be done? What needs to be done to, number one, make the nurses comfortable, and number two, encourage the best of our hands to stay back here with us?
Yeah, what needs to be done, number one, is equip the hospitals.
Okay.
Equip the health centers, equip the general hospitals, because this equipment, like when you go out in Nigeria, a nurse has to lift a patient using her body, using her strength to lift a patient from the bed to the chair or chair to the bed and all that. But outside the country, you have equipment, instruments that you can put under the patient, and it lifts the patient, and it takes away much of the strenuous workload from the patient. If the hospitals are well equipped, there is lights in the hospital, there are equipment to work with, I know that nurses will stay in Nigeria to work. That's number one thing. Okay. The hospitals have to be well equipped. And when you need to do something, you have to find an equipment to do, work with it. And the second thing is that remunerations should be improved. A nurse has been working for 30 years, and another person just comes back from school and is still a student. I don't want to call names so that I won't be, biased. And I understand. He's still a student. You're still teaching that person. He earns 3 times, 4 times higher than the nurse who has worked 25 years, 30 years. And that's very abnormal. And it's also in other climes. That is why, you find younger nurses going out of this country because they are appreciated and they are well paid for their jobs. If you put in the number of hours we put in Nigeria, you see the equivalent, the cash equivalent.
All right. Thank you very much. It's been absolutely interesting talking to both of you nurses. I'm remembering my first injection. I never wanted. In fact, we didn't talk about the nurses and the injection. We'll talk about
next time.
We'll talk about that some other day. Right now, we've been talking about, it's been the International Nursing Day. We've been talking about nursing, the issues, what they do, and what we can do to ensure that these people who put in so much effort are rewarded and they're able to continue to save lives. It's been fun and Lent in Africa. We hope to see you same time next week. From all of us here, we say keep making Africa proud.